today we're looking at the Spectrum Noir markers as part of our alcohol marker skill builder. So there are 216 colours in the Spectrum Noir family, and they all blend seamlessly just like the Copic system as well. There are 3 different types of markers. You have the original in the black barrel, which we'll get to as well. You get the illustrator markers in this white barrel. Plus there are also graphics markers that I don't have here, but we will talk a little bit more about them. So let's take a closer look at the markers themselves. The original markers are here, so you have 2 different ends on them. The originals come with a chisel and a fine nib on them. So you can see here how we can just either colour or you can fill out large areas with those original markers. The illustrator markers have 25% more ink than the traditional marker, as do the graphics markers. Now the graphic markers have the chisel and fine exactly the same as the original, but just with more ink in them, whereas the illustrators come with a fine tip on one end, and they have a wonderful brush tip on the other end like this as well. So they are your basic markers. Let me just move those to the side for a second, and I'm going to grab my folder here that contains the printout that's on the Spectrum Noir website, and I will link this up in the blog post for you. So you can again choose out your markers and you can put them in here. You can get a pre-filled or you can get an empty one, which I do, and then I fill them in as I get them so I know what I do and don't have. The M on the end of your markers is going to stand for magenta, BP will be your bright pinks, and PP will be your pale pinks. PVs, like this one here, are your pale violets, and they then go in a 1, 2, 3, and 4 shades. So the lower the number, the lighter the shade, the darker the number, the higher the number rather, the darker the shade. So I'll show you in a moment how these would blend together. We have your APs, which are your antique pinks, your RBs, your red browns, your tans, your muted browns, earth browns. And then they go through the different shades of blues, turquoises, the ice blues, the aquas, true blues, purples, into some more of the pinky purples, your earthy tones. You've got your gold brown, your brown grey, your green grey, your blue grey, ice grey, and your essentials, which is going to be your true black and your blender pen. We have some fluorescents and some flesh tones. And on the final page, we have the dark red, the coral, the oranges, the yellows, and some more greens as well. So I number mine as to what page they're on. So here you can see 4 out of 4, 3 out of 4, and so on as well. There is also a set for the illustrators, again in exactly the same way. And these just have the codes and the numbers on. And again, you can fill this out depending what you have in your collection. So going back to the markers themselves, I'll show you a little bit about how they work together. Let's grab this original set here. Now the originals, which are the black barrel here, they come in sets, or you can buy them individually. I have a couple of sets in my collection. The graphic and illustrators only come in sets, and they come in colour families. I bought the neutral and flesh tone set, which is the one you saw earlier. So again, I can start with my lighter shade. I can saturate the paper exactly as we would do with our Copics, and I'm just making sure I now pick up number 2. Again, you have those numbers on the end, and plus you have this little grey piece here. That is your fine tip on there as well. So that will tell you how they work together. So you can see here how I'm putting them next to each other to give me that ombre effect. So I'm going to start off just with the original pens. Then I'm going to take my 3. And I'm going to blend over the top of this to blend them together. So again, you can bring out colours, you can put colours in, you can create your own colours. And then you can also go back in with your 1 and blend them together. So I don't find they blend quite as well as the Copic system because of the way the numbering works. Whereas the Copics, you can go from a very light blue to a very intense blue, but you do still get some nice fadings across here. I do prefer the illustrators if I was going to buy any one set because of that brush nib on there. I find that gives me much nicer shading, and you can do some really fun effects like the flicks we did on grass. You can layer them together to create hearts like this. You can do all sorts of fun things with them, and I think there's much more flexibility in those brush tips as well. So that is Spectrum Noir week. Thank you so much for joining me here as part of our alcohol marker skill builder. If you missed last week, we looked at Copics. The week before, we looked at an overall comparison of all of the different alcohol markers out there. And previous to that, we looked at paper and stump pads to use with them as well. Next week, we're going to be looking at chameleon pens and how they work. I've been doing some research into how they come together and some different things you can do with those as well. And we've also still got to look at those Nouveau markers as well in the coming weeks too. So thank you so much for joining me here today. Do hit that subscribe button if you don't already. I've also added this video to the alcohol marker playlist, so you can check that one out as well. Happy stamping, and I'll see you again soon. Bye!